Welcome, fans, once again to KB's Unemployed Show, the only show on the internet where you can sit at your job and watch a guy who doesn't have one anymore. What will KB do today? Change guitar strings, perhaps? Grade papers? Worry about his future? Who knows? The only thing we know is it's guaranteed to make you question your intelligence, simply because you're watching it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the unemployed lifestyle of KB.
The pods are now open.
Look at my cat. Look at my cat. Look.
I like to study about the world cities and airports.
KB brings just great instincts. That's what you love about him.
Oh, that boy ain't right.
If Andy yearns for Brenda and Brenda cares about Charlene, who pines for Andy, the three of them form one of these. Kara.
What is it, threesome?
No.
Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of the biscuit.
Lesbians. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
I don't mind a bit of bush.
37 in a row?
Shut the f*** up, okay? Shut the f*** up.
Do you want to start drinking?
Yes.
You know, I'm going to have to go for 420, Bob.
Cheez-Its! Cheez-Its! Cheez-Its!
Light this candle.
He's right. Let's light this candle.
Light the candle.
Are you ready for it?
Coming in. I'm still learning how to do this, folks, so I appreciate you hanging around. Yeah, it is KB's Unemployed Show. Now, people are asking me, why am I doing this? In fact, I had someone who came up to me and said, what, are you trying to be a star on your own? And the answer, quite simply, is no. I'm not trying to be a star on my own. What I'm actually trying to do is simply just keep some content out there and remain as relevant as possible. But most importantly, I'm just sitting out here trying to kill some time so my wife doesn't get mad and thinks that I'm doing something. So that's what we're here today. Last couple of weeks, we've had an awful lot of fun. We've had some listeners joining in, co-hosting the show. And if you want to co-host the show with me, if you want to definitely co-host the show with me, it's very easy to. All you have to do, and I'll scroll it across the bottom, all you have to do is go to Drew and KB, fill out the contact form with your contact information, and give me one sentence describing why you would make a good co-host. And reason I'm saying one sentence is I don't want to have to sit and read all of these things and make a decision. So you got to grab me quickly, tell me why you would be the perfect person to co-host the show with, and you will be my co-host for a day. It's not that long. The shows have been running about I don't know, they've been running about an hour or so, a little over an hour, because really, who wants to listen to me talk more than that? In fact, that might be even a little bit too much for some people. But regardless, we're going to have some fun today. There's a few subjects that I want to go through. What I'm going to be working with you on, what I'm going to be sharing with you is a couple of my observations over the weekend, things that I saw. Some of the stuff that I did. Why? Because it's my Unemployed Show. I got nothing going on. To be perfectly honest, I'm going to change my glasses. I got to do something about this reflection, but I think I know what I'm going to do. Talk about a couple of things that I watched on TV, and then we're going to go down my list of top 5 cocktails for the holidays. It is drinking season is coming up. Of course, Christmas coming up on Thursday. And Wednesday, Christmas Eve, of course. I know I got a little function to go to Wednesday at lunch. And then Wednesday night is Christmas Eve. Thursday, of course, Christmas Day. Miss Sue and I, my son lives in Boston, and he's not coming home till Saturday. So it's just going to be Miss Sue and I on Christmas and Christmas Eve together. So this is probably the first time that we've spent Christmas alone in I don't know how many years, but it'll be fine. It's celebrate the birth of our Lord and open some gifts. And what do? I give you the top 5 cocktails, and I will be doing that shortly. And then people have been waiting for quite some time, and that is the return of the one and only Wink McAllister. Yes, we found Wink McAllister, and he will be giving us his replay of the Packers game on Saturday night, which obviously turned out to be a great, a serious disappointment. Watching that game, I thought that the Packers had that game in hand until, of course, Jordan Love was knocked out of the game with a concussion, which is a little bit upsetting. No, Nick, I have no idea. Nick is on and you can hit us on if you're on your YouTube or on Twitter, you can talk back to the show, and I wish you would. And I interact with you on a regular basis. I like to do that. I mean, hell, I don't. It's one thing that Drew and I did on our show before is we were probably the most interactive show that was on my previous employer station. Took a lot of calls, took a lot of texts. We love talking with listeners, and I love talking to you as well. So Nick says it's going to be driving through Antigo. Okay, of course, I'm wearing my Red Robins gear today. Going to be driving through Antigo in a few days. Any theories on what happened to Kayla Berg? No, but absolutely no. That was, 25 years ago or something like that? Nick, that's a good pull. That's a good sarcastic pull. No, the only thing take the billboards. They're getting a little faded. But we're going to talk about that Packers game was an incredible disappointment. Of course, Jordan Love going out, and I thought Malik Willis was playing very well. And then all of a sudden, that defense just goes brain dead, just freaking brain dead. Romeo Dobbs, of course, going with the Brian Bostic play on the onside kick, which then led to Keyshawn Nixon, was it Keyshawn Nixon or Carrington Valentine? I know someone will correct me. Which was he gets burned on the long pass play, and the Bears come out victorious. Now, I guess with the Bears coming out with victorious, when I see that, what I find most bothersome about it isn't necessarily whether or not the Packers will win the division, although this certainly puts them behind the 8 ball on that. But the worst thing that you can give to a Bears fan, I happen to think, the absolute worst thing you can give to a Bears fan is hope. And I've got an awful lot of it right now, man. You don't want Bears fans having the feels. It's Bears fans and Cubs fans, man. When they're feeling good about their team, they may be the most obnoxious individuals on the planet. Personally, I just go about my business quietly when my teams are doing well, unless someone wants to, irritate me and deliberately, antagonize, at which point I'm perfectly fine to reply. But the last thing you really want to see right now, I can tell you, is Bears fans that are feeling themselves, because it will only get more and more obnoxious. We've had this conversation quite a bit. What do you hate more? Do you hate Bears fans more, or do you hate Vikings fans? I think Bears fans. I think I hate Bears fans more because, I actually hate to the bone hardcore Vikings fans, because they are really, they're really obnoxious and belligerent. Bears fans, I hate them on 2 levels. 3. For God's sakes. Oh, there we go. I'm losing my feed. Wonder what's happening there. Might be my router at home. So hopefully it's not breaking up too bad. If it is, then they got to do a whole nother investment. But thank you, Spectrum, for charging more for my internet and then being a bigger piece of shit than it already was. But so the Packers find themselves a game behind the Bears, and we're going to need the Bears to drop in game, and we're going to need the Packers. They're going to have to. I think they're going to have to run the table. Otherwise, we're looking at that. It would be 9-7-1 record that nobody thought was going to, when they started out, was going to be that bad. And then when you take a look at the teams that they lost to, when they were losing to teams late, the Cleveland Browns, all of a sudden the defense just goes brain dead. And so I do not know what's going on there with that. But there were some flashes of greatness there. I think, you've got a Packers team that is pretty solid. I think it's a different outcome if Micah Parsons isn't out of the game. They would be disrupting Caleb Williams a lot more than the defense was doing right now. So I think that would have made a big difference. But now the Packers off till Saturday night, another Saturday night game against the Baltimore Ravens, who are starting to pick up the pace and play tough. And they're always going to be playing. They're always going to be playing tough defense. So Jacob in a van here says, there we go. I can't stand Bears fans, especially due to living in Kenosha County on the border. It's a strong 60-40 mix versus the Packers. So, Jacob, is that 60% Bears fans, 40% Packers fans? Because I can see a lot of that happening. Same thing happens down there with Cubs fans, too. And it's quite annoying. And I'm not going to lie to you, growing up in Antigua, Wisconsin, up north, in the late 70s and 80s, and this is when they really sucked. I'm not going to lie, I was a Cubs fan, but at that time, that's the only thing was the Cubs on WGM. We had the Cubs and the Braves, and the Cubs were they were closer, so you liked the Cubs, but those were the Cubs teams that were so bad, but I liked watching them. I was a big Ryne Sandberg fan. So I really liked Ryne Sandberg, and then you had the Sarge, Gary Matthews, and Keith Moreland and Jody Davis, and some of those guys. Maddox started pitching at that time period there, and so I didn't mind the Cubs at that time. And then somewhere along the way, the Cubs started to get good, and they started to pack Wrigley with just those absolute North Shore knuckleheads, as I call them, the floppy hat wearing, cargo shorts, BMW driving, quiche eaters from Winnetka. And that was quite, they're quite annoying, all walking around with their ill-fitting Kyle Schwarber jerseys. I don't consider them to be real fans. They're only out there if the weather is nice and they can make a big cup snake, which I think they're compensating for something with that, but that's just me. But the Packers are going to find themselves in a little bit of a rough position going into the last 2 weeks. Now, it was also a big football weekend, and the college football playoffs, I had mentioned this on the other radio show that I had been on previously. I think the NCAA, I can't think of a more inept organization than the NCAA. They were bad before the NIL thing, but I mean, they're really bad now. They were always inconsistent in terms of what the rules were for athletes. And now it's just an absolute freaking mess. And, everyone was screaming for the playoff and started with 4 teams. Well, that's not enough. There are teams that are out. Well, there's, and then it goes to 8. Now it goes to 12. Notre Dame gets bounced. We talked about that on the previous radio show. And, I do have familial ties to Notre Dame. And I've been a Notre Dame fan. You want to come at me? Come at me. I don't really care. I'm not, I didn't go to school there. I was supposed to go to graduate school. I didn't go to graduate school there. I don't know why I bailed on that, but I was young and I had a pretty good job at the time. I think that was it, that I didn't want to give up the money. But I do have familial ties to Notre Dame, but I'm not going to sit there and be totally clueless and look at, through the world through green and gold glasses, or blue and gold glasses rather. But I thought it was kind of bullshit when they got left out. And I will give you Miami. The big discussion was between Miami and Alabama. I will give you Miami going in because Miami beat Notre Dame head to head. They have every right to. But Alabama going in with 3 wins, and I don't care if they did. I don't care if they did beat Oklahoma. 3 wins. The only reason they're in is because it was Alabama. ESPN controls the money. They control the college football playoffs, and they have the SEC. They got the contract to the SEC. That's all you need to do is follow the money. Don't look any further. You follow the money, and that's what you're going to arrive at. But as I was looking at it, the two, and it bared out, it actually came out the way that we knew it was going to. So it's pretty much a money grab. The only good game this weekend was Miami and Texas A&M. Coincidentally, 2 teams that beat Notre Dame, and they beat them only by 1 point, and they beat them late. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, that was, that's a 10-3 game. That's Jacob and Evan, the SEC. It just means more. Okay. But you had Miami over A&M 10-3, which was a solid game. It was tough. It went all the way down to the end. But as I was kind of laughing about, I said, I was talking with a friend of mine, and I think I might even, what do you do? Do you exit now? I X'd this or tweeted it, but I just put out something like, man, that James Madison game is going to be a good one, said no one ever. And that's exactly what happened. And James Madison gets absolutely boat raced by Oregon. What was it, 51-34? Although I was pretty impressed that they put up 34 points against Oregon. But, then you look at Ole Miss and Ole Miss over Tulane and the Green Wave. Who knows? They throw these other conferences in. But I think they should have learned something when they saw Luke Fickell in Cincinnati go in a few years ago. Yeah, they ran the table, but they ran the table in a crappy conference, and they go in and get smoked. So, I don't know if they're putting the best teams in. I know that they were keeping Notre Dame out to try and arm them into going into a conference. And I can tell you this much: when it comes to Notre Dame football, no one is going to strong arm them. Their TV contract is so solid. They do not need to go to a bowl game. I mean, they can walk on it. They walked on it this year. Everyone called them a bunch of babies. But if you go down the list, there were other teams that took a walk on bowl games because of the same reasons. They weren't going to take the because those bowl games have been less. And I'm a purist when it comes to bowl games, right? And I miss. New Year's Eve to New Year's Day, if you were a college football fan, it was set up perfectly. You had the Orange Bowl on New Year's Eve night, which was, those were some of the great Nebraska games. Had some great Oklahoma games in the Orange Bowl. You knew that you were going to get these conferences going in. Well, first of all, it doesn't matter anymore because the conferences, who even knows who's in the conference? When you get Stanford on the West Coast and the ACC and the Atlantic Coast Conference, it's kind of stupid, right? Let's just come up with new names for them. It doesn't even matter anymore. But it always started out with the Orange Bowl on that night, on New Year's Eve. It was a great night. Then you get up the next morning and you could catch. The first one out of the gate would have been the Cotton Bowl. So the Cotton Bowl Classic was the first one. Then it was followed by the Rose Bowl. And then in the evening, the Sugar Bowl. And then somewhere in the late 80s, the Fiesta Bowl snuck in there. The Tostitos Fiesta Bowl kind of snuck in there and got a little bit more notoriety. Now it's just an absolute mess. There's just something that doesn't feel right when you're watching the sunset on the San Gabriel Mountains, and it's not a Big Ten and a Pac-10 team in there. Yeah, and I mean, call me old if you want, and call me set in my ways. That's fine if you want to do that. But the truth of the matter is, there was just something that was right about that. And then you get, on the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Eve night, which was, always a lot of fun, could be a very fun game. And oftentimes you get the SEC teams out of there against someone who was maybe at large. It wasn't, I do not believe that the Sugar Bowl was beholden to any conferences, but I could be wrong. And I probably am wrong because I generally am wrong, but I have thoughts on things and I share them. So the bowl game starting out, Miss Sue and I, my wife and I, were talking about this, and we're just like, we don't even know what to watch. We don't even know who's playing where. I don't even know who's playing where in the games, and or who plays next. So it really doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. And the statement that I made, and you can agree or disagree, when you take a look at the way they're doing the bowl games now, you can take a look at NIL. And when NIL first came out, I said, man, oh man, how can you just jump into paying the players like this without it being kicked around? It was just like, okay, you could pay them, and you just knew it was going to go crazy. And it's the wild, wild west. You took the balance of power and you put it in the hands of the students, as well as a whole shit ton of money, which is what you don't want to give to an 18-year-old, but that's neither here nor there. And I totally get the idea that, yeah, okay, the schools are making huge money off these athletes. They have to pay them. But I would certainly like to know how they can get around Title IX with NIL money, especially with a collective. Because if you get a collective within a university, isn't that theoretically university funds? And if it's university funds, then the distribution of that money, I would think, would have to follow Title IX rules, which Title IX was, of course, the reason why the Badgers lost baseball, because they had to have equal scholarships given to women's teams. Something had to go, because it's the football team that has so many athletes that it chews up a lot of that equality. But when it comes to the bowl games and college football, I think the best way for me to describe it is the quality of play better? Are they better, quote unquote, football games? Yeah, they probably are better football games. But college football was not made any better by NIL. I don't think the game itself was better. It lost a lot of, I don't want to say innocence, because it was never innocence. I mean, as long as there's been college football, it's been, and there have been scholarships and alumni, it's been dirty, right? But it was under the table. I like my dirtiness under the table. Now it's out. It's out in front of everybody, and we can see it. But the one good thing that did come out of this is, and I'm going to look at it and say, the good thing that came out of this is you get a school like Indiana, who you haven't seen before, that has been able to get to the number one spot and deserve it. Because I mean, you can't argue with the fact that they beat Ohio State, so they deserve that ranking at number one. And everyone thought that Alabama was just going to be, the greatest team ever, like the Boston Celtics or the 88 win UCLA Bruins or, the Patriots, although there was a big gap between when Patriots won Super Bowls. But, the last several years of Tom Brady's tenure, they're pretty dominant. And we haven't really seen that happen. I think that, the portal thing is, you got to have one or the other. I mean, the last thing you want to do is get a kid who's making $1 million that gets a bug up his ass because he doesn't like the coach and decides to bolt on the school that gave him the $1 million. If I'm the school, I'm pretty pissed off. If I'm an alumni, I'm pretty pissed off. So we've got those games coming up this weekend, and the bottom line is I'm not even sure who's playing coming up this weekend. And I think it's Texas Tech and Oregon. I'm not sure who Miami's playing. Indiana and Bama. And I am Indiana now all the way. I'm taking my red and white Badger stuff. My wife was a Badger, of course. She ran track her freshman year until she was injured because the women didn't have good facilities, and she was running a practice I don't remember the name, but they had the name of the track, but they had a practice at a public outdoor track where old people used to walk. And what ended up happening was some old guy walked out in front of her. She's trying to run a sprint and she got knocked down. She got injured. That's a good thing about Title IX is that, she would not have had to, that probably wouldn't have happened if they had their own practice facility, but nonetheless, I digress. But I don't know who's coming up. I don't know if anyone can help me out. Who is Miami playing? I would appreciate that out there. As those of you who have used to watch or listen to the Drew and KB radio station, radio show, if you're coming to me for facts, you're coming to the wrong place. I kind of get it right. And the best thing is I just like to get it close and, just scrape 3-footers, if you will. So that is, where I stand on the football playoffs. Now, there's one thing that got me pumped up this weekend, completely pumped. I think it was the greatest thing to happen in sports in quite some time. And that was Jake Paul got his ass kicked. Finally, Joshua comes out and says, screw this. I'm not going to lollygag around like every other fighter did. If the guy wants a fight, I'm going to give him a fight. And just pummeled him in 6 rounds. I thought Tyson was going to do that to Jake Paul. I was watching the boxing, the training of Mike Tyson, and his hands were still so freaking fast. And you could tell that the guy he was sparring with, even though he had the big chest protector on, he was just taking thumps to the thoracic part of his body, if you will. And I thought for sure that Tyson would come out and unleash those on Paul, and he would be down in a New York minute, but it didn't really happen at all, which was a bit disappointing. But Joshua comes out and says, F you, dude. Miami is versus Ohio State. Thank you, Benny. Benny, former co-host of the show, and we'll probably have him on again. Oh, I've also got a commitment from a couple other people who will be co-hosting, some of whom I may or may not have worked for, not directly, but have sat in on other shows. So you want to stay tuned for that. But anyway, Jake Paul goes out and gets his ass absolutely kicked, which, a YouTube influencer, just goes to show how delusional the people, once they get on YouTube and start getting some traction and people think they're important, and it goes to their head. I have been in radio for 30 some odd years. And, people look at it and they go, oh, you're a celebrity, which is like the dumbest in the world. No, I am not a celebrity. I'm a guy who has a job, and my job is talking on the radio and saying shit that I would normally get hit for if I was saying it in a bar. But being on the air is not that big of a deal unless you're Howard Stern or like Scott Shannon or Ryan Seacrest or like Corolla. Being on the air is not impressive anywhere. Okay. I do remember having a conversation with a very young person coming into radio who was, kind of thinking pretty highly of himself. And I said to him, I go, dude, you got to understand something. You're on like the 8th ranked radio station show in a select demo in the 41st market in the country. If you think anyone cares about you, you are absolutely wrong. And that's something that you have to learn. And then when you look at these influencers that come out, it's like, I'm an influencer. I don't even know what the hell that means. I'm an under the influencer. That's the way I would describe myself. I would describe myself as an under the influencer. But Jake Paul getting his ass kicked was absolutely wonderful, because it's like, just because you have millions and millions of followers, and you've created this false persona. And, the guy's uglier than hell, too. I mean, that's not that I want a good looking guy in there getting his ass beat, but he's ugly as hell. And if you're able to go back and watch the fight, it was on Netflix. Most of us have the Netflix. He took a punch to the jaw that was absolutely devastating that made me stand and cheer. It was absolutely fantastic. Broke his jaw in two places to the point where he had to have immediate emergency surgery. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. But then he takes a picture of himself on his private jet with stacks of $100 bills thrown about the cabin, probably tens of $1,000s, and 7 guns. Okay, hardly a role model. And boxing was always like the heavyweight champ of the world. Man, he was the champ, and that's what hey, champ, how you doing, champ? And you don't have that anymore. The champ is not the champ. And I'm trying to think of who the last heavyweight boxer was that you could consider to be the champ. Where you say, hey, champ, right? Because what you look back in the olden times, you had like Jake LaMotta and Joe Louis, and then you had Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and Joe Frazier. When those guys won, man, they were the champ. And now you don't even know who it is. They had all these now they've got all these, different associations. So you don't even know who the champ is. Who's the champ? There's something special about the champ. You went and you boxed to the point where you really couldn't speak well anymore. And then you became a greeter in Vegas. Just greeted people, walked around in a bad sport coat, showed your rings, showed how busted up your knuckles were. And that's what you did. But now, I don't want to walk in and see Jake Paul standing at the door greeting me. I have no reason to meet you. There's nothing remotely impressive with that. But that was a big high five for my buddy and I were watching the fight. We're like, yes, finally, he took one in the teeth. In fact, that's what happened. He had his jaw wired shut, and he had to have the surgery because they had to remove a couple of teeth because they were rearranged. But then it just goes to show you, in a way, he's going, yeah, it's a little bit of pain, but look at all the money I have. Yeah, well, you do have a lot of money, but you also have a lot of guns on a private jet that's flying. But I suppose if it's your jet, you can put as many guns as you want in the passenger cabin. But hopefully, Jake Paul has decided, yeah, I'm done with this. I don't need to do this anymore. And the sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned. I think I figured out. Here's another thing. I think I figured out why Travis Kelce may have had a bad year. I think I may have figured it out. I didn't record it because I know I cannot put it up on YouTube because I'll get copyright strikes and everything will get taken down. But I've watched the first 4 episodes of the Taylor Swift documentary, and I have to say, it's pretty impressive what they needed to do to pull off this tour. It is, underneath that stage, it's multiple stories, and there are literally hundreds of people, and it is a well-oiled machine. And you do get a peek behind the scenes to see how all of that stuff works, which is even if you're a musician, it's really, really interesting to see all of that. If you're not a musician, it is pretty interesting as well, because it's so overwhelming. You don't think of anything and what happens behind the scenes in order to get a concert of that size to and a show of that size 3.5 hours to come off without a hitch. But I think I figured out because in one of the first episodes, and then in the last in the last episode, it you got a nice little taste of the relationship between Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm going to say this, and it is my opinion, and you don't have to believe it, but I think Travis Kelsey had a bad year because he's pussy whipped, plain and simple. They have they recorded some of the phone conversations they would have and the way that they would talk to each other. And it's like, come on, man. You could talk that way. But God, you know what? Don't, for the life of me, don't go and put it into a documentary. And when I saw that, I'm like, you're done. You're done. No wonder you've gotten soft. Now, I don't blame you. Your girlfriend's worth $1.7 billion. Okay, so why not hang it up? But he came back for one more year, didn't do much. The Chiefs are out of the playoffs. And I consider it to be the fact that he's become a total wuss. Oh, how was your show last night? Oh, that's so good. I miss you. I miss you. I miss you, man. Go Black, and we're back. I don't know what the hell happened there, but Spectrum is my internet provider, so fuck them. So what were you talking about? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we were talking about, I think Travis Kelce has become totally whipped, and he should just retire, do his podcast, go off to wherever with Taylor Swift, and be done with it. If, like I said, she's worth $1.5 billion. If I was dating someone who was worth a tenth of that, I would probably quit. Next topic up for discussion. Here is my next topic. As you know, we are getting to the holiday season, which generally lends itself to alcohol consumption. But what are the best holiday drinks? Well, I can tell you, I'm going to walk you down, tell you some of my favorite holiday drinks and the reason why. Coming in the number right here, so that's KB's top 5 holiday drinks. And I'm not going to leave that on the back there, see, because it's like I could probably look around and go, there you go, KB's top 5 holiday drinks. Coming into the number 5 spot is Wassail. And what is Wassail? Let's see if does that work that way? Does that work that way? No. Okay. Well, Wassail is something that I was introduced to when I was in college. And when I was in college at St. Norbert College, I used to do these things called madrigals. And these, it was like a madrigal dinner. And then people came and, they like ate medieval food and stuff like that. And then they had the choir would dress up in like medieval costumes and sing Baroque Christmas carols. And they do it 7 or 8 nights in a row, and it would sell out. Well, I worked in the dish room, and we'd have to do all the dishes at the end of the night. But madrigals, you got a lot of extra money, and you also got to take the wassail home. So it's kind of like a spiced drink. I think it's made with rum. I should probably look that up. I think it's made with rum, and there's some orange juice in there and some clove and some other spices, cinnamon. It's kind of a cidery drink, but it'll rock your world if you want. So coming in at number 5 for this is Wassail. Wassail at number 5. Coming in at number 4 is the classic martini. The classic martini. Now, when it comes to martinis, I am a purist. Okay. And you got to see through it. You got to pretty much be able to see through it. Yeah, it gets a little cloudy when it is a dirty martini because you got the olive juice in there, but you should have to see through it. It should be gin or vodka, dry vermouth, which is all clear. If you want to do it on the rocks, sure. I don't happen to believe that you should. I kind of like my martinis I like the pickled mushroom. I'm a big fan of the pickled mushroom. But of course, most people go with blue cheese stuffed olive. And number 4 is a classic martini. And I like the classic martini because my father-in-law would come to the house and for Christmas, and he was always grumpy about stuff. And he'd come, and the first thing he'd do is sit in the spot that I normally sit in. And, you'd have to make a martini. And so I used to jack him up. I mean, I used to, pour heavy. And we could get him napping inside of an hour. And the rest of the night ended up being pretty enjoyable. So coming in at number 4 is the classic martini. Coming up at number 3 is Cherry Bounce. Now, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Cherry Bounce, but to me, Cherry Bounce is a fantastic drink. You make it on your own, okay? Cherry Bounce is kind of a Door County thing. I learned how to make it. JR, our fraternity moderator, JR, made Cherry Bounce, and that's where I was turned on to it. Cherry Bounce, you got to get a glass milk jug. Oberweis milk jugs are pretty good. You maybe get the old, but it should be glass. It should not be plastic. It should be glass. Get the old glass milk jug, right? And you put about a quart of Door County cherries in there, but you can put any type of cherries that you want. And then you fill the rest of then you put a cup of sugar on top of it. You fill the rest of the bottle with vodka. Now, I've seen that people have done it with bourbon as well, or they do it with brandy. You do you. It doesn't matter. I happen to do it with vodka. And you put the sugar in, you cover it up, and then you shake it every day for about 5 days. That'll get all the sugar dissolved. Then you keep it in a cool, dry place in the basement. You have to do this back like in August. So you do it a long time before the holidays. Put it in August, let it sit there down to the basement when the holidays roll around. You get a pretty potent little syrupy. It's kind of syrupy, but it's very cherry-like. And eat the cherries, forget about it. As a matter of fact, my wife and I used to throw a big Christmas party, and I used to hire Marquette interns that I worked with. I used to hire them to come out and bartend and run drinks around and everything like that. And one year, there may or may not have been one of the girls that was supposed to be working who was popping those cherries like they were Skittles. And she may or may not have, I don't know. I guess you could say propositioned a very prominent attorney's wife at our party, which I thought was, it makes for a great story. And I'll always look back at the party fondly, but Cherry Bounce is pretty. It's pretty kick-ass. It is pretty kick-ass. Coming in then in the number 2 spot is the old fashioned, right? There it is, the old fashioned. The regular, and as you can see there, it's got the Luxardo cherries on the top, the $14 jar cherries. Now, the old fashioned, I'd like to point out, I'm not a big brandy fan. I am a bourbon old fashioned purist, right? But the old fashioned, when you drink the old fashioned, there is not soda in it. In Wisconsin, it's like, I have a brandy old fashioned sweet or a brandy old fashioned press or no. The old fashioned is you muddle it, you put in the simple syrup, and you add the bourbon, and that's it. That's all you got in there. It is not full of soda. And that's the way to drink an old fashioned. It becomes more of a sipping drink. But in Wisconsin, I can see why you want to cut it with the soda because, as a state, we like to pound. And that would be leading to, I can see why they would do that. I can definitely see why. But the old fashioned is coming in at number 2. You want to do brandy, that's fine. You want to do bourbon, that's fine. But muddle the fruit, use a simple syrup, no soda. You got a much, much better drink. And then coming in at number 1, I don't think anyone will listen to the Drew and KB show. I don't think you wouldn't have any trouble trying to guess what my number 1 is. And that's, of course, the Brown Mumbler, the Bourbon Manhattan. That has become my drink of choice as in recent years. Although, what happened was I used to, vodka, Drew and I like to call it, vodka was a universal mixer. You can mix vodka with anything. It is, vodka is the little black cocktail dress of liquors. And a while back, several years ago, I switched to drinking whiskey Manhattans because, they're pretty heavy. It's pretty much straight booze, right? So I'm like, well, I'm going to start drinking Manhattans because I'm going to have to slow down and sip because you can't go hard when you're hitting Manhattans. You can't go hard at all. So I went to the Manhattan, although now I'm thinking I might go back to the martini. I might go back to I'm maybe going back to the dirty martini because now these are going down way too smooth. So KB's top 5 holiday cocktails. Let's run them down again. Wassail in the number 5 spot. followed by the classic martini, followed by the Door County Cherry Bounce, followed by the old fashioned without soda. And then the number one of my top holiday cocktails is the Brown Mumbler. So I'm going to have to figure out how I do that so I don't have to peek around the corner, although it was all right peeking around the corner to do that. So this will all be posted. I'm going to break that down if you want to go back. And I'll put some recipes up as well. Like to remind you, if you ever want to co-host a show, all you got to do is go to drewandkb.com, fill out the contact form in one sentence as to why you would want to co-host the show. Now, I want you to understand that the reason, like I said as I started the show, the reason I'm doing this show is not because I necessarily want it to be good. I don't think I'm capable of doing a good show as a number one, but I just want to keep pushing content out there so I remain relevant in the event that I may come back to radio at some point in the future. I don't know if that's going to happen. If not, I'm having some fun now, learning a lot of stuff. But and that brings us to what is the final segment of the day. And that is, I'm going to skip today. We will not be doing what color is the sky on your planet today. Because we are coming down to the end of the show, only a few minutes left. Like I said, I've only been going for an hour with these, and looking down the road, if we ever come up with if there's Drew and I were ever to be able to reunite, I think this is the way to do it. You work an hour and a half. You don't have to listen to commercials. You don't have that other stuff. You can just have all your A-list. You don't have to fill time. But coming into the number one spot is I found him. I went out looking for him, and I found him. He has got I guess you could say, a very divisive personality. People either love him, or they hate him. But I found him. And for the last several weeks, we didn't know where he was. He became a staple of the Drew and KB radio show, and then disappeared after we kind of disappeared. And who is on? Who is that? It is none other than the great Wink McAllister. Yes, Wink has resurfaced. And here again is Wink McAllister's Green Bay Packers replay, bringing it back to you, the fans of Wink.
Hello, everybody, again. This is Wink McAllister with your Green Bay Packers replay. Well, how the hell are you, folks? Long time no talk. It's been one hell of a ride. Talk about a total blindside. I haven't been taking surprise like this since I was dating Bobby Benton and saw her spread eagle in Playboy magazine. Full bush and all. Talk about a Birkin. That was a top-level hedge, I tell you. But imagine my dismay when I heard my Green Bay Packers reports would no longer be needed. It's tough to take when you're 78 years in broadcasting is just discarded like an anonymous sex worker on Gilgo Beach. But like the legendary mobster Hyman Ross said in Godfather Part 2, this is a life we've chosen. So once I found out I was no longer covering the Packers, I took it pretty hard and went back to my two Achilles tendons, booze and broads. I hit the bottle pretty hard, as well as a couple of widows from the Sunset Estates retirement community. I tell you, you can get those old broads really cranked up if you slip a little bourbon into their insurer. Now, people ask me about Trixie and how she handles my dalliances. Well, when it comes to broads, Trixie doesn't mind because it gives her a break from the little winker. Or, as I like to say, the statistically average winker. But it's the boozing she hates. So one night, I come home smelling like a Kennedy, and I start frying up a tomahawk steak on my George Foreman grill. Well, that woke up Trixie, and she comes flying down the stairs, screaming at the top of her lungs. That's it, Wink. I put up with a lot in my lifetime, but eating my tomahawk steak is the last straw. And with that, she takes my fedora and Underwood typewriter and throws it out the front door. Tells me she never wants to see me again, and slams the door behind me. Anywho, I was out for good this time, so I head down the road to get myself a room at the Lux Inn Whirlpool Suites in Dalton, Illinois. Sure, it's a 2-star hotel, but I deserve to stay in a suite. I read online they had trouble with bed bugs, but this ain't Winker's first rodeo. I always carry a couple of cans of Raid with me when I travel. So I settle in for the night, and about an hour later I hear this loud bang which wakes me out of a dead sleep. Then it's followed by 4 quick thumps, and then what sounded like somebody starting a lawnmower. And then 5 minutes later, everything goes quiet. Thank God, because I needed some shut-eye. So the next morning, I'm heading out to breakfast, and the guy from the room next door comes out, and I look at him and say, "What the hell were you doing last night? You kept me up all night." He apologized and said it wouldn't be a problem because he was checking out. He seemed to be struggling with his suitcases, so I grabbed one of them to help him out. Damn, it was heavy. So I laughed and said, "What the hell you got in here, a dead body?" Well, he didn't think that was funny. Grabbed the suitcase, threw it in the back of his white cargo van, and peeled out of the parking lot. So I'm in the lobby, and I pick up a copy of the Trib, and I see the Packers are playing the Bears at Soldier Field that night. Well, this is my chance to get back in the show. So I grab a cup of Joe and head off to downtown Chi-Town. I get to the media gate to see if they have a pass for the old Winker, and of course they don't. But I look down and I see the name Mike Heller on the list. What the hell, I thought. Let him figure out what to do if he shows up. And into the press box I went. It was a cold night at Soldiers Field in Chicago in a showdown between the biggest rivals in the National Football League. The winner of this game would be the odds-on favorite to win the NFC North Division. Now, the Packers came out looking like Super Bowl champions, but in the middle of the second quarter, Jordy Love got hit in the head and suffered a repercussion and would not return. Malachi Willis held down the quarterback position, giving the Packers a 10-point lead with 5 minutes remaining in the game, but then a Festivus miracle as the Bears signal caller Caleb McDowell led his team down the field to get a 3-point kick. He can't get within 6 points. Or 7, I don't remember. Then everyone knew an on-the-side kick was coming. Everyone except Roman Dubs, that is. And he dropped the ball, giving the Bears another shot. And they converted, sending the game to overtime. The Packers started marching to the touchdown scoring zone, and it looked like they were going to pull this one off. Then Malachi Willis dropped the ball, and the Bears took over. 3 plays later, Caleb McDowell threw a long throw to DJ Jazzy Moore in the touchdown scoring zone to give the Bears a 22-16 win. I don't know if I'll be back next week, folks, so I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I'll be thinking of you and yours as I relax in my spacious room at the Lux Inn Suites in Dalton, Illinois, with my turkey roll and a bottle of smooth as silk Kessler's No. 7. Goodbye, everybody.
There we go. I figured out how to do it. If I just put this up behind here. Next time. Anyway, it's Wink McAllister is back. Found him in the we found him in that hotel, and if he hadn't showed up trying to, bogart Mike Heller's credential, we would have never known that he still existed. So, where does that leave us, folks? Well, that leaves us at the end of our show. 162 people tuning in. I'd like to point out that if you are watching on YouTube or if you are watching on Twitter, you don't have to go and say this sucks and all that, because I know that already. But I'm going to keep doing it because I've got nothing better to do. Tonight, as soon as we get done here, we got to do a little bath with some baby wipes, because, the best thing in the world to happen right around the Christmas season, the best thing that I could possibly think would happen is our water heater goes out. Well, we got a guy coming tomorrow, so we will be able to take a hot shower tomorrow. Brand new water heater. Great. There's $1,500 out the window. But I'm going to have to do a baby wipes bath tonight. Because the balls can get a little gamey. I'm not going to lie. They can get real gamey. You got to, you just can't go for days without that. And the reason being is tonight I'm going to be down at Shank Hall. If any of you are in the Milwaukee area and you still can get down to Shank, I highly recommend it. It is the 45th annual Sleigh Riders concert. And what the Sleigh Riders are is, and there will be video up tomorrow on this YouTube page of some of the performances last night. But what it is, it's some of the top musicians, a lot of session guys too in Milwaukee that come together once a year to raise money for a variety of children's charities. And everyone kind of comes in The band is huge, by the way. And everyone kind of comes in and brings a song that they normally don't get to do in the band that they play in. Everyone learns a song. They've got drummers, percussionists, violin player, backup, 4 chick backup singers, a full complement of horns. So these are big, huge songs, and it's well worth the $20, and the $20 goes to Variety Children's Network, goes to a great cause. And Christmas is about kids anyway. So if you happen to live in Milwaukee and you want something to do tonight, I highly suggest coming down to Shag Hall. You won't be disappointed. I'll be back tomorrow at 3 with another show. But until then, all I can say is what I always say: make good choices.